Welcome to the Zachrilege cast, the one interview podcast that brings the best and brightest of the atheist, skeptic, and just plain cool community. This is episode 31 of the show, and we're recording live on September 29th, 2015. Let me offer a heartfelt apology to the listeners and Patreons of the show. All of the Patreons have got a nice discount with me not doing the show for a couple weeks. I'll make a non-startling admission. I'm a member of a cult. That cult worships an oblong ball and is obsessed with sitting on a couch and watching said oblong ball, some call it a football, move around. I would like to thank Dave Foda for being on my last show, and if you didn't get enough of his dulcet tones, listen to him on this week's Atheist Roundtable with new homeowner Andrew Garber. Perhaps all the people hating on atheists would reconsider when they realize that you can get them deep fried. Tonight's guest is a country fried atheist. Daniel Andrew Duncan is not a serial killer or presidential assassin, even though the three names might make you think otherwise. He's co-host with Shane Thrapp of the excellent and informative Country Fried Forethought podcast. He also lives 10 miles outside of bumfuck South Carolina. If you want to play a game of Skepardy, only he knows the rules. Welcome to the show, Daniel.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, you aren't kidding about me being the only one who knows the rules to Skepardy. I sent it out to every single potential contestant, and it was just an absolute comedy of errors when we did that. I still have the audio on my phone. I listen to it from time to time, and my blood pressure starts to peak.
Yeah, the old saying, the herding cats of atheism, trying to explain rules to a game and show up on time to the people there. But we'll get to that as we move on. But we got to get to the story here. This is all about you and your background. So did you have any religion growing up in your family?
Yeah, I grew up Church of Christ, which is kind of the footloose type preachers where you can't do any kind of fun activity. They're very socially conservative. So no music during church services, no drinking, no gambling, and just be straight-laced. Like I told you in pre-show, it's made me into kind of a straight arrow here.
So you didn't really go the other way, huh? You still kind of kept that as your personality, I guess, once you got out?
Yeah, I just had a good respect for authority, for rules, and so I try not to step out of bounds too often. 10 got me very far in life, but 10 got me locked up in jail either, so I'll go for that.
Well, you got a cup of coffee back there, so I guess you didn't switch over to the Mormon, right?
Oh, no, definitely not. I also have my shock top tonight.
There you go. Well, I have I was in Nashville last weekend, didn't get to, I was going to try to get a meetup with the Unbuckling the Bible Belt and Tucker Fuzznuts as well, of the Trailer Park Atheist. Sadly, we weren't able to meet, but I got some Nashville beer. So I have this is a Dos Perros from the Yazoo Brewing Company. And then because it's the season, I got a Dogfish Head Pumpkin Ale. Because when it comes to beer, you always have to have a backup, I think, you know? That's my theory.
I've never been a fan of pumpkin beers. I don't really like flavored beer too much in general. Just keep it simple. Belgian white, lager, Pilsner.
Well, you got to know what you like. I mean, that's important. And I don't know, it's because I really like pumpkin pie, I'm like, well, I have to like it in beer form. And I've only had a couple of versions that have been good. This was mentioned as one of the best, and it's one of the best breweries, so why not? We'll see how it goes as we move on. So what was it?
You're speaking my language with pumpkin pie, so I might have to give that a shot.
Well, I found an article, and it was the pumpkin beers that actually had real pumpkin in them. Some of them just have like flavorings or spice, and this one does. So I'm like, okay, let's try it out. You can try, 200 kinds of a certain style of beer and then go, you know what? Still not for me. That's me in IPAs. I really don't like the super bitter stuff. But yeah, we could do a whole hour on beer. That'd be awesome. It's exactly what it's.
I'm sure me and Shane will be doing that sometime soon once we get the podcast restarted. We've got episodes planned on all sorts of topics, and alcohol is just one of the many. So
Tangents are always welcome on the show. So, what made you decide, or what was kind of the journey to not being a believer anymore?
Education. It's pretty simple. I had a really good secular high school education. Um, my civics class in 12th grade really focused on why the Bill of Rights was important and what it meant to be fair to everybody. And so as I went into college and started getting my degree in history, I started learning about all the various world religions and realizing that everyone needed to be treated fairly. And so whenever I started trying to compare religions, it all shook out. None of them made sense.
But that you had to officially do the kind of coming out and tell the family and friends and all that?
It was kind of a slow transition. I was agnostic for a long time, self-professed agnostic, and I don't remember exactly when I finally told my family that I don't believe in God, but it's there's been some bumpy roads with them, but everything's pretty good now. We have sort of a ceasefire on it, except for my dad. Me and my dad will go back and forth on Facebook every couple of weeks or so, and he's good to keep my counter apologetics up.
Yeah, there are times when I'm glad that my parents aren't on Facebook. I don't know. Not that I don't really openly post stuff, although people tag me all the time, and it's kind of like Facebook is my testing ground where I'm kind of sort of out and just to see what people do. And of course, the reaction is usually nothing. But yeah, I kind of came out to my mom after ReasonCon, which we both attended a few months ago. Seems
Yeah.
like, oh, it just happened, man. And it was like, I accepted and I love you, and then we've never talked about it again. And that's kind of where we're at. And I think that happens with a lot of people. Like, this is going to be hard to talk about, so let's not.
Yeah, you just figure it's not really important. I mean, my mom and I have a lot better things that we can talk about. Talk about the dogs that she is raising at the moment, or how we need to get my sister's house fixed up so her kids can move out. And there's more important stuff than religion. And so it'd be a bit hypocritical of me as someone who has a complete disdain for religion to try and always have the conversation when I think it's irrelevant.
Yeah, I guess you can't. Someone's like, "Hey, what do you want for lunch?" You go, "Jesus never existed." That kind of. Sometimes there are just times where it's like, maybe not now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, leave it to the time and place, and of course, always be respectful of other people. You realize you're dealing with another human being. Sometimes that softens the blow a little bit. So how did you? Because we were both at the glorious ReasonCon in North Carolina. How did you get to be the host of Skepardy, and how did that all, work out as you kind of alluded to earlier?
Yeah, when I first heard about ReasonCon 1, I wanted to get involved in some way. And so I threw together a book exchange. It wasn't a very good success for the first year. And I wanted to do something different in year 2. So I got to talking with Gene. We exchanged a few ideas. And then I heard on the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe that they were doing their big extravaganza with a game show on stage. And it just hit me like an inspiration. I said, this is perfect. This would be a great way to entertain people and get folks who wouldn't necessarily ever be speaking at the conference, get them up on stage, let them entertain people. So, and I just got it approved by Gene, did a lot of legwork, and everything worked out as best as we could expect, really.
And did you get Callie right? Who's the champion? Did she get some kind of trophy or anything as champion, or just bragging rights forever?
Just bragging rights, really. It was. ReasonCon is a volunteer effort. My input was a volunteer effort, and so given how tight the budget was, I wasn't going to insist on anything, and I don't personally have the budget to give her a trophy. So I don't know. Now I kind of feel bad. Thanks, Zach.
Yeah, I'm glad to help. Anything I can do. No trophies, just get a hug or something, because Kelly's got the legendary hugs.
That's true. That's true. One of the best things about the conference.
So what'd you think about year 2, and is year 3 of ReasonCon, is that already being worked on?
I don't know. I haven't confirmed anything with Gene yet. I figure we'll probably start hearing whispers about it in another month or so. Gene's kind of like me. We like to plan things out. So about 6 months ahead of time is reasonable to expect it. But I know a couple of conferences like the Pennsylvania State Conference are going to be taking a year off because of the Reason Rally. So I don't know if Gene's planning on doing the same or if ReasonCon will still be going on. I kind of hope it will because I love it. It feels like going home. It feels like a big family reunion whenever I go up there. But I could also understand it whenever everybody's trying to make it to Washington, D.C.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like that conference was the conference I was going to go to this year, and I hear about all these other conferences and all these events where everybody's getting together, and it's like, oh, my online friends are getting together to be fun, but really that's about it. So yeah, DC next year is intriguing. I know people are already booking rooms and getting themselves ready for that because it's going to be like every atheist conference in the country put together. Maybe it's going to be pretty big.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I booked my hotel the night they announced the date. My wife and I are planning on just taking Amtrak up there. That way we don't have to worry about trying to get a car around DC with everybody in there. I don't know how the metro is going to work, but we're only a half a mile away from the Lincoln Memorial, so we should have a good time.
Yeah, I know the last time, because the Reason Rally happened in 2012, and I'm pretty sure there was some kind of like carpool or a bus that came out of Atlanta. I didn't get to go. I don't think I was quite ready for that yet, but yeah, next year, I mean, it's not terribly far to go, and I don't know. Train could be interesting, but yeah, I think if you're going to go, yeah, you better get a hotel room booked, and you can always cancel a reservation at the hotel. It's pretty easy to do. Other stuff's not so easy. And here's the pumpkin ale just to show you the color scheme. Look at that. Wow. Right. Awesome.
Yeah. Personally, I haven't been doing a whole lot of drinking. I've made an exception for you, but ever since I got put on a appetite suppressant, I just don't have a desire to drink much anymore. So,
man, that's just rough.
Well, it's I don't miss it or anything. It's just I had to do something for my health, and this was just a side effect. So if I'm hanging out with people, like I've got friends up in Greenville that I go and hang out with, I'll have a couple of beers now and then, but not every day like whenever I was getting off work and hitting the fridge first thing. It's a good thing, really.
Well, health is important. It's gotta take care of yourself first,
Yeah.
Don't drink just because of me. It's like peer pressure. Oh, we don't want to go there, but maybe just a little bit. Just a smidge.
Yeah, one beer's not gonna hurt me much. It is poison, but oh well.
It's delicious poison.
Yep, everything's poison in the right dose.
So how did you get hooked up with Shane to start the Country Fried Forethought podcast?
I met Shane at ReasonCon 1, and we clicked instantly. I don't know. We just had very similar backgrounds. We're similar looking guys, and I don't know. We just gravitated toward each other. So we met on Facebook afterwards and talked for about a year. And then after ReasonCon 2, I got the idea. I got inspired to do a podcast myself. And I approached Shane with it because I knew that he had been talking about doing a podcast as well. I was thinking, we're two guys that get along really well. We could probably put together some really good content. And originally, we were going to try and usurp a podcast for a national organization because their podcast had been dormant for about 6 months. Literally, the day that we were going to sit down and record our first episode, that other podcast restarted. So we had to go right back to the drawing board. Shane came up with this idea of comparing religions on different subjects, and we both just ran with it from there.
Well, I like the format. I mean, there's a flood of, atheist, skeptic kind of scientific podcasts. And sometimes you get stuck in the same, headlines, 5 headlines on each show. But yeah, I like how you hit a topic and kind of cover it in terms of different religions. So you've done, is it 3 shows so far?
Yeah, we've got 3 episodes up. We opened with homosexuality. We were going to hold off until we had 5 in the can before we released the podcast. But we recorded the homosexuality episode during Pride Month back in June. And we wanted to get it out to coincide with that. So we got an early start. And then we put out the first episode that we recorded, which was the rape episode. We put it out as episode 2. And then I told Shane we needed to lighten things up just a little bit and talk about diet. Can't have every episode from the first 10 or so to be really heavy topics.
Well, there are a lot of heavy topics, and it also makes you go, man, I really loved rape. The episode. It was good. It was informative. But I like the one word. It's very succinct. And I listened to the one about diet today, and it's not shocking when you do any study of a religion to realize that the kind of Judea / Christian / Muslim like food restrictions aren't terribly different. But I think, was it you referred to Islam as kind of Abraham 3.0?
Yeah. Yeah, and they just kick everything up to 11 as far as taking all the laws from the Old Testament and just crank it up one notch further if they can. And I guess you could say the same thing about hell too, because hell wasn't in the Old Testament, and they took the idea of the Christian hell and just cranked it up as far as it would go. So it's about as crazy as you can get until you get to Scientology. I am loving the stuff that I'm learning about Scientology in addition to the stuff that I learned on South Park. I actually got to use the little factoid on some friends when I was hanging out Sunday night about why Scientologists have a problem with gay people. I was like, oh yeah, I know this one.
I didn't really know what that was. What's the issue with Scientology? I actually saw that. Well, anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, in Scientology, they believe that you have the souls of ancient aliens clinging to your body, and they think that homosexuality is a byproduct of an opposite gendered Thetan becoming dominant on your person. So you have this old soul that is of the opposite gender taking over your mind and influencing you to act out with sexual preference for someone of the same sex.
How heteronormative of them.
I know, right?
It's always like in my mind, like if you see I see a really bad commercial, I go, wow, I wonder what the ideas were that got shot down. And when it comes to some of these religions, I'm like, what are some of the religions that just didn't catch on, that were probably in the ballpark, but just never had enough people to follow? Because it's just wild to see these religions. I think it was David Fitzgerald had the book about the Mormons, and I try to imagine like what would Christianity be like if we had the same kind of historical record of its being created as we do for Mormonism. Like we'd have some serious shit on Nepal. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah, we kind of do have some of that stuff, though. It's weird, they have the Gnostic heresies, which are just the infighting among the early church, really. And so I had a lot of fun listening to Atheism 101's episode about the Marcion heresy. I'd always had this idea that that's what Christianity would be like if you took it to its logical extension. And it was odd to me that people as early as I think it was 110 were making the same arguments that I was thinking of in my 20s. I'm trying to remember the exact details of the Martian heresy, but they've evaporated.
Well, you think the whole concept of is it what is the one where the wafer becomes the actual body and they actually, well, I don't know if they believe it, but that's what they teach. I wonder if that's the idea that held on. What was some of the ideas that didn't make it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can look in Paul's letters where they're even still holding on to animal sacrifice, because he's talking about in, I think it was Second Philippians or First Philippians, whichever one's authentic. He's talking about they sent him an animal to sacrifice, and yet in Peter's vision, you don't have to sacrifice animals anymore. Jesus is the ultimate sacrifice, and all animals are good to eat. So there's even infighting in the Bible.
Well, I mean, isn't it some of Paul's letters? Experts, even Christians, say that they're forgeries, and this is in the actual text of the. Well, I mean, I know there are many versions, but it's in most of them, right? These letters that are like, oh, this actually wasn't Paul.
Yeah, it's so much fun listening to Noah and Heath and Lucinda talk about pseudo Paul, about, yes, this is totally real Paul. This is how I write. I'm totally Paul from Truthistan. I get a big kick out of that because I don't know offhand which of the epistles are fakes, which are forgeries, which have just minor interpolations. But it's fun to learn that stuff and just try and have it in your back pocket whenever you're going back and forth with people.
Well, I remember discovering, I can't remember which gospel it was, but it was the one where Jesus was like the super kid who had the powers, like it was like he was a comic book character, and he was like, "I'm mad at you, now I must kill you," kind of stuff. And it was like, well, yeah, what that happened to those years? He just disappeared from basically infancy until he was 30. There was nothing of him.
Yeah, it's almost like he was made up or something.
Like fan fiction.
Yeah, man. I have a good friend who runs a podcast, and she's really big into fan fiction. I never got into it really well, but yeah, I think what you're thinking of is the Gospel of Thomas. It might be the Gospel of Judas, but they're all anonymous writers anyway. It's just names attributed to them.
Yeah, the names. It's just, I don't know. It's wild to think that Christians can be really hard on things like evolution, of which we have much evidence, and then they go back to this book, and it's like, well, who wrote that book? I don't know. And even if you know the name, it's like, yeah, but that's not. They just threw that name on there later. They didn't actually. I think the Gospels did they not even have names initially? But,
that's correct, as I understand it. But my dad, he's my basic apologist guy. He will actually say that the names on there are the people that wrote them. So Matthew wrote Matthew, Mark wrote Mark, Luke wrote Luke and Acts, according to him. But I love my dad to death, but he it's like talking to Josh Fairstein whenever I talk to my dad. It's fun. It's a good mental exercise, but it goes nowhere, and his points are incredibly weak.
yeah, get those kind of arguments, and I'm sure you've heard them all 100 times. You're just like, okay.
Yeah. One time I had my dad tell me that the God particle was the tiny hole in your heart where God lives.
God is infinite, yet appears in your heart, and can't clear up a little plaque. Come on, man, help me out.
The size of a boson, apparently, as well.
Yeah, that was bad marketing. The God particle naming just didn't go well. They're like, no, it's stuck. Oh well, we're screwed.
Yeah. Kind of like all of those Einstein letters where he's talking about pantheistic God or talking derisively about God, but everybody's like, oh, Einstein talked about God. We have the letters. He was a Christian. He was a Baptist, or a Muslim if you listen to the right people.
Wow. Yeah, I think the easiest thing for people to do is that deathbed confession. There's so many stories about like Christopher Hitchens. Oh, when he was about to die, he decided. It's like when you're about to die, you say anything. Your brain's going through some stuff. So yeah, that's. I don't think that's gonna just automatically change what somebody is in their life.
I remember right before Christopher Hitchens died, I saw a YouTube video pop up. I think it might have been shared on Facebook, but it said Christopher Hitchens deathbed conversion. And I was as red as your shirt. I clicked on it. I was like, I'm going to rip these people a new asshole. But it turned out it was a parody video where Christopher Hitchens lay on his bed and deconverted a priest. Yeah.
So he reversed it.
The end.
I like that. Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
So what's it kind of like in South Carolina, since we're both kind of in the South, but I'm in a weird bubble since I live in a big city? Like, approximately where do you live, and do you get involved? I know you're involved with Reason Combo, like a local group where you are that you get to meet fellow freethinker types.
We have a really active group in Greenville called the Piedmont Humanists. They have a weekly meeting every Sunday where they discuss a different topic. They'll bring in presenters from the outside, and it's always a fun discussion. They also have a Thursday night meeting where they'll either meet at a pool hall or a sit-down restaurant. They'll alternate weeks, and they do various events with gender benders and pride and the Unitarian Universalists. And they're just an amazing group. Unfortunately, I live about an hour away from Greenville, and I commute to Greenville every day for work. So whenever it gets around to Sunday, and it might be my one day off that week, I just don't have the energy to pack it up and go up there in the middle of the day for a meeting. So I don't get to be as active with them as I would like to. But I did get to go see the Book of Mormon earlier this year with a group of them, and I was grill master at their annual picnic back in August.
Grill master. Well, after that episode about food, burned meats, right?
Yeah, it was a pleasing scent to the Lord, or whatever, a pleasing aroma, that it is. And it was definitely pleasing. Of course, I did throw some veggie burgers on there because we're hippies and communists.
Oh, yeah, there's always on there. Did the veggie burger touch of meat? No, it burned off. It's clean. Yeah.
No, I cooked them on one side of the grill and cooked the meat on the other. I'm respectful of people, even if it is a little nutty.
It's a little nutty. What is it? So God likes burning flesh, yet he's against bacon. What's that all about?
Well, he likes it. He's very particular about the types of burning flesh that he likes. I mean, he gives really specific instructions in the Pentateuch. So it's no surprise that he wouldn't like bacon. He much prefers redder, leaner meat.
I mean, all you got to do with pork is you just get a little slow cooking. You get the temperature up. You're healthy. You're all good. You're set. You're ready to go.
Yeah, we had pork ribs last night thanks to my mother-in-law. So, I don't know how God would feel about those. I mean, the barbecue sauce gets them plenty red, but it's not very lean still yet.
It's not, but it's darn delicious. Yeah, I like the baby back type myself. I have a big green egg, so I'm like a grilling snob, as I am a beer snob as well. And I just finished grilling some chicken and bratwurst tonight because I like to grill a ton one day a week and kind of have my food for the week. But it's quite good.
Yeah. I had a thought and it just vanished whenever you were talking about grilling. It just made me hungry.
I said meat.
Yeah. I don't know where it was. Oh yeah, I like country style ribs myself. They've got a lot more meat on them. You do have a lot more fat on them too, but I like the big hunks of meat on the country style ribs instead of just having the little strips of meat and all the tendon on baby back ribs.
Yeah, you got to watch it because I think I had some beef ribs and they were just so much bone, and we know so much bone is a bad thing. We need to have the meat involved. So many chances to have bad double entendres when you're doing an episode on eating, right? Meat and being pleasing to the deity and all that.
Yeah, and just putting all kinds of stuff in your mouth. It can lead down all sorts of different roads.
It's true. So we've been, hitting some hard topics. So let's try a little lighter. So we survived another apocalypse. Is it me, or is every full moon now a harbinger of the end of the world? When do we start just ignoring this?
I would have thought we would have after Harold Camping, but I would have thought we would have before that. But it's crazy to think that we're regressing as a civilization, because it used to be that the shamans and the priests would figure out when the eclipses were going to happen and preach about it as an omen of doom. And we've learned so much over the past couple of thousand years, and yet we're still teaching that, oh my God, the regular rotation of the earth around the sun is going to be at just the right point, so obviously we're all going to die. It's absolutely stupid.
Yeah, there was some kind of Jewish prophecy that just passed, and then there was the blood moon, and the Pope's visiting America, because that's never happened before. Yeah. And just all this stuff was happening, and it's like taking what normally happens, like Wall Street had a few bad days, and that became an omen of bad times, and then of course it recovered, because it usually does, and you just move on. I guess we don't remember the hits, because when it comes to the apocalypse, there haven't been any.
Yeah.
But it's easy to say, well, it did spiritually happen. I mean, I'm of the opinion that people say that these times are bad, but it's really, we're just hearing about all the bad stuff where it used to not get press coverage, and now everything that happens gets out there, and we always end up focusing on a few stray things, like Kim Davis, where there's a bunch of other bad stuff going on in the world, but we're just like, we got to focus on this one bad thing. So I think we're hearing, there probably have been way more apocalyptic predictions, but they're just getting pressed now. And of course, all the atheists who want to make fun of these kind of things are like, oh, thank you, another prediction, great. This is awesome. I think it was, which podcast did it? It was the Harold Camping. It was the countdown to
post-rapture looting. Is that what you're thinking of?
Well, one of the things was whoever came up with the idea of, if you think you're going to be raptured, we'll take care of your pets and just pay us $10 a month, something like that. Make a few bucks off the deal. Be a capitalist.
Yeah, can't blame them. I mean, if their religious leaders are going to co-opt their stupidity to make money, then why don't we as well? But you hit on a point earlier just now about how we just think the world is as bad as it is, and I was really inspired by Steven Pinker's book, The Better Angels of Our Nature. I did a presentation over it for the Piedmont Humanist a year or so ago. And the basic thesis of that is just that we are living in the best time, the most peaceful time that humans have ever lived. And the only reason we think it's so bad is because of ideology and because of media coverage. If you look at the statistics, fewer people die by a couple of orders of magnitude than in any other period of time before us. And we just focus on what's bad. You see the same thing whenever you look at just regular news coverage about crime. Most people don't experience crime in their lives. But every day on the news, that's what leads up 7 minutes of a 30-minute broadcast. Is just what the local crime news was.
Yeah, it's about getting attention, but does end up being over the top, and there's no like, hey, by the way, generally speaking, things are good. I mean, as a football cultist, I mean, we always hear the bad stories about what NFL players are doing, but we don't get a lot of stories like, hey, this guy visited the children's hospital, or you don't get to hear that, so you just think, wow. And then you look statistically, and you're like, actually, these guys don't get into trouble as much as normal people. It's just that we pay attention to them, so yeah, it's all magnified.
Yeah, Congress has a worse arrest record than most sports leagues.
Well, of course. Yeah, now, is South Carolina kind of lagging behind North Carolina? Because I feel like North Carolina's a leader in crazy. Like, they're passing some kind of law that's banning, was it fetal tissue research? Come on, South Carolina, step it up.
Well, Nikki Haley has been trying to shut down all our abortion clinics in the past month. So I've been trying to keep an eye on the one in Greenville because she sent the health department inspectors out to inspect all of the abortion clinics in the state with the stated purpose of trying to shut them down. You know, it really bothers me whenever a woman will go about things like this, will take such a hard stand against women's health.
Yeah, there's no nuance. And today I took my faith, because that's activism for me, is taking my Facebook avatar and making it pink for I Stand with Planned Parenthood. I actually got into an argument with someone on Twitter about abortion, and the other point of view was, well, this video exists, so this bad things are happening. And I'm like, it's all been debunked. Like, it's not debunked. There are real Planned Parenthood people in the video. I'm like, well, yes, there were real Planned Parenthood people in the video, but what they were trying to portray, and it's like, it's edited for time. Oh, never mind. I feel like I'm just having an argument with myself right now, which is awesome. Do you ever get into those, like, where you end up like kind of arguing with a stranger online and going, what have I done?
Most of the time it's actually people that I'm Facebook friends with that I'll get into arguments with, because I take the tack that I will hold everyone to the same standard. So if it's someone that I barely knew in high school, or someone who lives right next to me, or somebody that I work with, if you post something stupid on your wall, there I can see it and I can make comments on it, I'm going to point out to you, here's where your facts are wrong, here's where your thinking is wrong, please adjust your stance. I'm sometimes more rude about it than I'd like to be, particularly with people whose brains I really respect. But I respect almost everybody enough to say, hey, I think you're wrong about this.
Does it end up, do you get those moments where you're like actually having a dialogue with someone, or does it end up kind of yelling at each other?
It really depends on the person. I've been blocked by most of my family members outside of my immediate family, and I'm okay with that. But particularly within the online atheist community, I can usually have a rational discussion with anyone that I'm going back and forth with. You know, I have regular discussions in comment threads with someone up in the Forsyth area, critical thinkers. I won't call him out by name, but you know, he and I see differently on a couple of political issues. For the most part, we're in alignment, but on these particular issues, we disagree. So we'll go back and forth with one another. Sometimes it gets a little heated, but by the end of it, we've presented our evidence and we've been able to say, well, I don't agree with that, but I still like you.
Well, that's a pretty mature way to go. I think that's what happened to me is I've had a few of these lengthy arguments, but it's just with a kind of stranger. It's not someone I knew before. We may have argued before, but and ultimately, if it is a stranger, if it's someone you don't have that kind of background and history with, you're probably not going to reach that ground where it's like, okay, we're friends, we're going to get along, but let's have this discussion. Because I feel like we can get a long way. Like if you're actually going to talk to someone who is a religious believer and have respect and go back and forth and explain your points of view, you're probably going to get somewhere with them. But sometimes it's just, you feel like it's like, well, I'm waiting to yell at you and you're yelling at me and it's not happening.
Yeah, I'll start off with just a basic presentation of facts about how somebody's wrong about a particular point, and then I'll move from that to being blunt. You're wrong. Here's some links. You're still wrong. And if they go to the point of going ad hominem and throwing verbal insults, everything's off the table. I'm gonna go for the neck. You know, I've had to do that. That's usually on other people's threads. I'll get in an argument with one of our mutual friends, and you know, it gets ugly sometimes.
Well, I see the posts, and there was one today, and I don't remember where this. It's like a police department where they put "In God We Trust" on their vehicles, and the Freedom from Religion basically sent them a letter, and their letter response to Freedom from Religion was "Go fly a kite." And of course, everybody was like, "Yay, God bless you, way to go!" And just like, oh man, echo chamber. And
Yeah.
did people even know that "In God We Trust" is relatively new? And I think it's "E Pluribus Unum" was the original, which is way more inclusive.
It's been in the lifetime of most of the, you know, it's been throughout the lifetime of most of Americans now that's been our national motto. So I can't really blame people for not knowing that it's relatively new. But once it's been pointed out, I have a great big problem with people continuing to act as if that's not a problem.
Yeah, you don't know how much you can put out an argument and say, hey, by the way, this was changed in it's the motto was like 1954 and the money was like 1956 where they added "In God We Trust." But you can say that over and over again, and some people are just not going to hear and they're not going to care. Like, well, it doesn't matter because it agrees with my pre-existing beliefs, so it must be right.
Yeah, I've actually picked up some pre-1950s dollar bills at flea markets and whatnot, just so I can pull it out and show people if they really need hard evidence. Just say, hey, all right, you don't believe me? Well, here's the proof right here.
Well, you live in a bit of a rural area, and South Carolina is kind of where the whole flag controversy began. Are people still flying the Confederate flag around you?
I still see it. Yeah, I still see it on the backs of trucks, and I still see old friends from Arkansas posting stuff in support of the Confederate flag. And I have this handy link that I just copy and paste right into their comment section every time somebody posts it. It's from Michael Buckner. It's a quiz called "What Was the Confederate Cause?" And he just goes through and provides links in question form of what was the Civil War all about. And usually I'll just leave it at that. If somebody responds back to it, I'll say, okay, so you really support slavery? You really support the subjugation of other human beings just because they happen to have a different skin tone than you? Because that's what you're saying when you support the Confederate flag. I have no sympathy for people that would make that stance knowing what the history is.
Of course, in the South, it's not states' rights, it's states' rights. But I'm not even going to try a Southern accent. I've been in Atlanta since '96, and I'll never officially get my, Southern, status. I'm always going to be a Yankee.
Yeah, I was surprised when I moved out to South Carolina and I was considered a Yankee for being from Arkansas, even though the states are parallel. I didn't understand it.
Arkansas's in the SEC. Come on, that means it's part of the South, right?
I don't have any idea what's going on with the University of Arkansas. I went to Arkansas State, so the Razorbacks can go straight to hell as far as I'm concerned.
Go Red Wolves, baby.
Damn right.
I went to University of Missouri. They just played in football and almost lost. It was close.
Yeah.
It was the beginning of the end.
Yeah, they've got a decent football team. It's not great, but it's a lot better than when I went to school there. We were still the Indians back then, and we had a 12-1, 13-1, or no, a 1-12, 1-13 season. Won one game. I couldn't believe our homecoming game that my freshman year. They were up 26 points at halftime and lost by 26 points.
That takes a lot of effort. That's good work.
Yeah, against a Division IIA team as well.
So you a conference magnet? You trying to get to as many as you can?
No, I'm on a limited budget. I make a good amount of money, but nothing to write home about. But if there's something close to me, like Atheist Alliance of America convention coming up in 3 weeks, or is it 2 weeks? Yeah, 2 weeks. October 15th through the 18th. It's going to be in Atlanta. It's 3 hours away from me. I can drive there and still have a lot of fun all day. Same thing with ReasonCon. It's 2 hours away from me. Those are conferences where I can make it to. I can afford the admission, and I get to go and hang out with all the people I chat with online all the time. It really is. It's funny whenever you walk into these conferences, and whenever I walk into my humanist group, it's like I'm taking off a suit of armor. I've been carrying this big, heavy cloak on me, and I can just shrug that off and walk up to anybody who's got a ReasonCon badge, or really anybody in there. You can just assume that they're there for the conference and say, "Hey, I'm Daniel. Nice to meet you." Because of my stances on a lot of stuff living in the South, I hold back a lot from people. And so it makes it feels so good when you can just walk up and talk to anybody. Do you feel like that at all?
Yeah, when I went to ReasonCon, it was day 2 of the conference, and I had my Coronify Me shirt. And I was nervous wearing it, even though I'd say 90% of the people at the hotel were at the conference. But there were some people who weren't. So I was like, oh, I don't know. And then when I went downstairs, I was like, hey, Corona, great. I listened to that show. And it was like, oh, wait a second. I'm in a whole different ballpark. It was an experience that I've never had before, because I'd say, a few dozen people that I had only met online, I met in person that weekend. People I'd listened to in podcasts, or people I had just barely heard of. And it was great that way to just have that and be like relaxed. You're right. Like the weight is off your shoulders because you're in a conversation with someone, you see like a cross around your neck, and they're like, oh boy.
Yeah.
You got to watch it.
Yeah,
Not to really
it
in
was.
general conversation throw stuff out, but it was nice.
Yeah, that comment you just made, it made me think of my trainer whenever I was learning to drive a truck. I spent 5 weeks in a sleeper truck with him, and every day he wore this great big huge gold cross on his neck, and he was the filthiest, most sinning person that I'd ever met. But every day he put that cross on first thing. Kind of funny. So yeah, I didn't talk about religion with him at all.
Yeah, I think someone made so if Jesus were killed by the guillotine, people would have guillotines around their neck now. I mean, it's awesome. It's just, do you know what
It's funny. There's some scholarship that say he wasn't even put on a cross, but rather just on a stake with his arms um, put above his head. So it's an interesting thought that the cross may have actually been apocryphal.
It's a lot of that. So, what do you think about the Pope's recent visit?
I don't care. He old white guy says a bunch of rambling nonsense. News at 11. I I don't get why so many Protestants in the country are going nuts about it. Whenever, was it 50 years ago, Kennedy, it was questionable whether he'd even be able to be elected because he was Catholic. It's amazing how quickly the tide turns.
Yeah, I think Joey Lee Kirkman, who has that book coming out, PR Pope, is like perfect timing because someone posted, so the Pope is against gay people and thinks women are second rate and is kind of pushing the whole, abusing kids under the rug. But he said climate change, and we agree with climate change, so we like him. Really?
Yeah, I just ordered my copies of PR Pope and Bedtime Bible Stories. I was hoping to get them from him directly at a conference, but I don't know if he's going to be at Atheist Alliance convention. And I told him that I wanted to go ahead and get it before he got a fatwa put on him.
Yeah, really. So now Shane actually was the one who reached out to me on Facebook and mentioned the Atheist Alliance conference like a few months ago, and to promote it on my show. My many dozens of people listening. And then he kind of disappeared, and I haven't heard much about the conference. So why don't you take an opportunity to kind of promote it since you're going to be there?
Yeah. First things first, I'm going to be doing another game show type thing, teaming up with Tim Brannon from the Secular Nation podcast. And we're going to be doing a bar trivia event. Not sure what time that's going to be yet, but it should be sometime on Friday. The speaker list is amazing. I couldn't believe it when they finally announced it, because at first they had just announced Greta Christina and Jerry Coyne. And then I'd heard that Stephanie Gatormson had been added. And now I was freaking out whenever Noah announced the full speaker list. It includes people like JT Eberhard, Mandisa Thomas, Bria Crutchfield, Herb Silverman, and David Silverman are going to be doing a debate. I'm not sure what the topic's going to be, but that should be a lot of fun. Because I think Herb is kind of not a firebrand. So I'm hoping that's going to be the topic of discussion. Yeah, it's just an amazing lineup. It's going to be a 3-day convention. Everything starts on Thursday night with VIP dinners, full day of talks on Friday, party Friday night, another full day of talks on Saturday, a Halloween party Saturday night, and then some more talks on Sunday morning, ending at about noon. So
That's serious. It's like Reason Con at a day.
yeah, I'm excited. I actually skipped all the talks at ReasonCon this last year because they were going to be recorded, and the recorded files got corrupted. So unfortunately, I missed those. So hopefully, I'll get to see some of the talks that I missed re-aired.
Well, I think they had audio from the VIP Friday night dinner. I remember hearing that. a little while later. But it stinks that those talks. I mean, it's unfortunate. It's weird. Like during becoming like an active atheist, I swear there hasn't been a major conference here. And then the weekend that there is a major conference here, I'm scheduled to go to the Missouri-Georgia game, which is in Athens on Saturday. And I don't know when it's going to be. It's sometime during the day. So I'm like, well, I probably need to at least show up to Friday. So I wonder if they have some kind of like day-by-day pass, because I need to get down with my peeps and hang.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they have day passes for the talks, but I know they have day passes for the parties as a separate ticket. You just have to check the website, atheistallianceamerica.org/convention. And you'll be able to find all the ticket information, the full speaker list, and the tentative schedule on there.
Nice sales job, man. You should be running a conference.
Maybe one day, whenever I don't work 70 hours a week. Every time I talk about my workload, I increase it by 10 hours.
I work 900 hours a week. It's insane.
Yeah, I'll be up to 170 once I do 10 more interviews.
So we're getting close to the end of the hour, so it's time for the most important question. So do you have anything to ask me?
Well, you kind of already spoiled it. I was going to ask you why you thought football was more important than atheist conferences. But I guess that's asked and answered.
I'm making a transition. Like, I have been a Tennessee Titans fan for a while, and they've been absolutely horrible for like 6 years. And I went to the game this Sunday, and they had a lead and they blew it in the end. And my alma mater, Missouri, got beat too. And I realized I'm just not, it's like a relationship. I'm just not that into you anymore. It doesn't devastate me like it is before. I have tried to have the mental power of like, if they win, I'm happy. And if they lose, I wasn't on the team. I had nothing to do with it. So I'm okay. And I can move on. But I like there's nothing like, SEC football, it's like in the South, pro football is like 50 years and college football is like 700 years. I know it's only like 150 years, but it seems like it's been forever, and it's crazy, and the atmosphere is great, and people are either really nice to you or they might poison your trees. They can be really rough. So the amount of vitriol is interesting. But in a way, I bought a ticket to the game, but last time Missouri played at Georgia, it's an hour from here. I basically went to a sports bar, was all by myself, and got to drink very good beer the whole time. And I'm like, maybe I need to do that again, because I really like beer, and there's some really good breweries in Athens. Creature Comforts is one that I've heard of, so I'm thinking of changing my plan. But I had planned this game a month before I'd even heard of this conference. And I'm like, come on,
Yeah.
October is just a rough month. I'm busy as all get out. I'm out of town like 3 out of 4 weekends, but I got to do this, and it's so funny because at the Reason Con, because I interviewed the guys who did the show, they gave me a badge that said podcaster, even though my show wasn't a podcast yet. And people gave me shit about that. And I want to go to a conference where I'm like, yes, now I'm a podcaster. My show's on iTunes. Ha ha ha.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much bragging I'll be doing about my podcast, given how few episodes we've actually put out. But I might make business cards. I don't know.
But they're strong. Yeah, I need to get something, because I swear I talked to a few people and they're like, Zachrilege. No, and it's really hard to remember how to spell it. It's on there, by the way, in case you don't spell. Anyway, yeah, I'm really bad. I'm in marketing and I really suck at it, apparently, with my show. But just to get to hang out with people, and I did meet Mendes a while back, and I'm sure some of the local people here will be there. So maybe doing the Friday night would be great. And then we can actually hang out, because I'm not quite sure if we officially met each other at ReasonCon or not.
Yeah, Joe was grabbing your ass at the time while we were in the drink line together. So.
Oh yeah, Joe and his kilt. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to meet up with him in Nashville, but one of these weeks we'll see. But before we call it a night, plug thyself. How do people find you?
I'm on Facebook. Yeah, I'm
Facebook.
Daniel Andrew Duncan. Yeah, that's
Always
the easiest way to
Facebook.
find me directly. Just look for the guy with the rainbow flag still on his profile. That's got the people's eyebrow raised. Check out countryfriedforethought.com. We're on iTunes. We're on Spreaker. And we've got some more episodes planned. And Shane and I are planning on getting some audio from the various conferences that we're going to be at. Shane's going to be at the Carolina Secular Conference this weekend. If you're wanting to go to that, just go to vacacon.com. And I'll be once again at the Atheist Alliance of America Convention, October 15th through the 18th, Atlanta, Georgia, at the Crown Plaza near the airport. Go to atheistallianceamerica.org/convention.
By the airport, so I'll be getting there at one point. Yeah, I'm hearing about this Carolina conference, and it's just so many people are going to be there. And it's like, oh, it's not too far away, but sadly, I'll be in Nashville again because that's what I do.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have a rotating schedule at work, so I had to pick which conference was actually going to fall on a weekend off that I had. So,
yeah, you probably have to
but
plan
I think I
much
lucked
advance.
out pretty well.
Yeah, I think it's going to work out because you're going to be there. So thank you, Andrew, for being on the show, and I want to thank everybody again for watching and listening to the Zachrilege cast. If you feel benevolent, you can donate to the show's production by heading to ZachrilegeCast/Patreon. Actually, it's patreon.com/Zachrilege. Be as cool as Bobby C, Human, and Teody, and be a Patreon. In short, be my first non-Atlanta supporter. Hint, hint. So follow me on Twitter, Zachrilege. It's spelled right there. I know I say it's sacrilege with a Z, but there actually is an H in there. Lovely. So like the Zachrilege cast page on Facebook, I try to post some of my favorite podcasts on there and some of my thoughts that I wouldn't post on real Facebook. And send all hate mail to zachrilege.cast@gmail.com. And thanks again to Andrew for joining and being part of the show and completing my Country Fried Forethought set. And stay skeptical, my friends.